So Saturn was the old name for Satan. And Apollo, and his son. And so they build the God particle collider on top of the temple of Apollo. And Revelation 9:11 says that there is the bottomless pit is opened, and the demons that come out of it have a king over them called Apollyon. Apollo. Why would they do that? Why would they? Just coincidence, hunting the God particle, so they open a dimension or the bottomless pit and let Apollyon out. Could they, if they're really into that, could they tell us? How could we actually know that's what they're up to? Well, because CERN had a big celebration a few years ago, and you can find it on YouTube. I don't know, they can't take it down because it's telling you the vision, and if they take it down, you won't accept it. But they want to take the gospel down because the words will create a world for you to live in. So out at CERN, they began to have this big celebration, and when they did, it showed their workers in orange jumpsuits and hard hats walking up out of the pit. And they walked up out from that underground thing, and they stood out there like robots and marched around. Then they started doing all these dances, these wild things, and then suddenly they simulated an orgy. They stood there on camera, took off their clothes, and standing there in their underwears, and they were just simulating all kinds of ungodly things, while at the same time they had a video screen up and had workers with hard hats trying to break through a wall. Some of them fell and died in the simulation, showing that there was nothing they wouldn't sacrifice to get through that wall. And they went through the wall, and when they finally got through the wall, guess what came out of the hole? It was Baphomet, the goat man, the man with a goat's head, Satan. And they were saying, this is what we're doing. We're trying to open the portal. Let Apollyon come out. And even if it cost us our lives, we will keep doing it. And when they broke through, he came out. Surely this is just a bunch of uneducated dopes sitting around watching it, huh? There were heads of nations in suits standing up applauding. What did they know? They knew something. This is called spiritual warfare, but it's going on inside blurred lines, and Christians can't see it. So they're told, don't let people prophesy in your church. Don't let people stand up and speak in tongues in your church. We must squelch the power of God in order to bring this thing into this realm. And right outside of CERN is Shiva, the god of destruction. One of our presidents appeared on Newsweek as Shiva and called him the god of the whole world. Wonder, do they know these things? Well, you think? Somebody knows. And so they've got us living in blurred lines. Some of us. Not you. Because you know. And then you hear the pronouncement of the serpent. Eat this fruit and your eyes will be opened. See, modern language is this. Eat this fruit and you'll be woke. And so it just continues. And it continues, and it's pushing, and it's pushing, and it's pushing. But what they do not understand, and they never can, just like Nimrod thought he had it figured out. He knew more about spiritual and political things than this world is just now discovering. He knew it. He wasn't very far from Adam's fall. Adam could communicate with angels. He knew there was another dimension. He knew the other worlds. He knew how to get there and how to come back. They knew how to create a giant race in Genesis 6. They knew how to do these things. Nimrod knew that that's what brought the flood. Both times was mutating races, crossing DNA. Just like Hitler. He knew that every time it did it, a rift would happen when those fallen beings would come through that dimension. The only thing, Hitler couldn't open a dimension. He didn't know how yet. And so he began to do it, and Nimrod and his scientific could be compared to today. He understood more than most churches do about spiritual on the dark side. And so he built a tower because he knew that every time those fallen beings would come in here and they would mate with human women in some form or another. I don't have time to talk about all of that. But it was done in the soul. And when that happened, every time it created a rift when that dimension opened. Every time CERN opens a dimension, something happens in the world. You ever notice that? And every time he opened it, every time those occultist people opened it, it created a rift until it got down to there was only 8 people left that was pure. And it created a flood. But he can't hear the word of the Lord that there will never be another flood. That came because Noah offered a sacrifice of an animal. So Nimrod built a tower so that he could continue opening those portals and a flood would never reach him. But no matter how they think they have it figured out, the Tower of Babel, they say, was so high that a brick became more valuable than a man because it took 1 year to bring a brick from the ground to the top. And so if a man fell off, they didn't weep so much. But if they dropped a brick, it would take a year to replace it. So in that day, bricks became more valuable than men. Oh, come on now. And offering children, doing all of this in occultic worship. And then suddenly, but what they were not counting on is when they thought they had it all figured out. They thought that they had this thing open where they could open that stargate, open that dimension, bring these beings over, mutate, do this, cross genetically. He was becoming a Gibborim. Everything going on, every single thing happening. They thought they had it made. But then the day came when the Lord said, let us go down and see the tower. And when the Lord, that's God in His system of harvest, let us go down and see the tower. And when He saw it, He said this word, Babel. Babel. And when the word Babel was uttered, no one understood each other anymore. All their religions were divided. All their ideas separated. And then when the ideas separated, they all had new words. They couldn't live together anymore. And all of Nimrod's huge kingdom collapsed. And now the Tower of Babel is just a broken down memory that shows what happens if you oppose the living God. What you're looking at now is they think they have it made, building their towers, doing all of that. They've got it all made. They've got the dimension opening. They've got the religious rituals. They've got enough children's blood flowing through the streets. They've got it all together. They're ready to do something new. And then you have people like Gaga step out and start singing, dressed and toning God in His face. They're not counting on something soon and very soon. Babel will take place. Oh, come on, y'all. Soon and very soon, Babel will happen. And it'll just be a distant memory of how Satan could not bring it to pass. Brother Robin, you shouldn't get so mad. I'm not mad. That's like Paul told Felix, I'm not mad, O noble Felix. He said, Agrippa, King Agrippa knows everything I'm saying. I have a righteous indignation within me. And I'm releasing it with a prophetic voice as a prophet of the Almighty. I have a responsibility to tell you the truth. You ought to yell at this thing every time you see somebody doing something. You ought to yell at it and say, Babel. You ought to say, Babel. Hallelujah. Well, that's all I have time for today on this. I have something I'm going. Maybe next week, we can pick this back up. If people would like to pick it back up. Of course, I have to do it anyway. But you have to remember something. We are living in a time that these truths must be known. Could there be a hidden agenda in the blurred lines? Yes, most definitely there is. So don't be fooled. Don't be fooled by these things. There's about to be another Babel take place. And there's going to be a great confusion in the enemy's camp. Hallelujah.